I should mention something. Yeah, which is not. The clock is on time.
Hi, how you doing? Guys?
I think you should donate your clock to the district. You should just have it.
It has a lot of, you said one word. It costs me $7. I can see it.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 council meeting. So since 2023, the District of Metchosen's Council has identified reconciliation and building strong relationships with our neighboring First Nations as strategic goals and key priorities. I want to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and specifically the Siano and the Suk First Nations. I want to welcome Tracy Lynn Payton and Ruth Souder from Beecher Bay to our meeting tonight. Thank you for joining us. We recite a territorial acknowledgement at the beginning of all of our meetings. Acknowledging territory shows recognition and respect for Aboriginal peoples. It is recognition of their presence both in the present and in the past. Recognition and respect are essential elements of establishing healthy, reciprocal relations. These relationships are key to reconciliation, a process to which the District of Metchosen is committed. While acknowledging territory is very welcome, it constitutes a small gesture towards cultivating strong relations with the First Peoples of Canada. However, acknowledging territory and First People should take place within the larger context of genuine and ongoing work to forge real understanding and to challenge the legacies of colonialism. Territorial acknowledgement should not simply be a pro forma statement. They shouldn't be performative, made before getting on with the business of the meeting. They must be genuine and understood as a vital part of business. Rarely, as a council, do we have the opportunity to do something beyond words towards reconciliation for our neighbors and for our community. At tonight's meeting, we are asked to amend Section 219 Covenant to allow for proposed development of 34 lots next to the bufferland at the Centre Mountain residential site, which will allow for provision of water, power, and emergency access to the business park, as is a key priority for the Siano First Nation. In doing so, we will do our part in ensuring economic development for our neighboring First Nations. Reconciliation does have material impacts, and I urge you to keep an open mind and vote with your mind and your hearts. By approving the Section 219 Covenant Amendment, we can honor our commitments, not just in words, but in a constructive and palpable way. Welcome to the meeting. So we have an agenda for you. We've got additions in the pinks to correspondence from Nicole Shukin and Shannon Hamilton as well. I'd like to move the mayor's address to after number 10, because we have a number of guests in the audience that may want to leave before that, just because it's long. So with those two amendments, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Move approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So regarding presentations, we have Ms. Molly Cameron here. She's president of the Community Wildlife Education Initiatives. Welcome, Molly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Molly Cameron. I am president of Wildwise. I'm also the founder of the Cougar Coexistence Initiative. I've been studying cougars on the South Island for the last several years. Everything I do, both as a professional and a volunteer, revolves around wildlife. So today I'm here to talk to you about coexisting with cougars. I'm going to skip through a lot of the general information, but I do want to provide an understanding of these animals based on what's been happening in the community. So cougars are apex predators that typically consume about 1 deer-sized prey per week. They'll also consume rabbits, rodents, livestock, and domestic pets. They're opportunistic hunters. They're very auditorial and visual stimulated. They don't have a great sense of smell, so that's not something that does attract them to prey. However, again, as opportunistic hunters, if food source is available and they're hungry, they're going to take advantage of that. They do not understand the difference between wild and domestic animals. They simply see a food source. They have a lifespan of approximately 10 years, weigh anywhere between 80 to 200 pounds. They themselves have evolved to be almost completely scentless. They can be tracked by dogs as an adult, but kittens usually have no scent whatsoever. They're solitary animals besides mothers with cubs or cubs that have just separated from their mother and are not quite ready to be independent on their own yet. They're able to see incredibly well in dark and low light. Their vision at night is almost as good as our vision during the day. And they have short, soft fur that makes it really difficult for them to actually stay warm in sub-zero temperatures, which is just a cool fact about them. Cougars can mate any time of year and give birth at any time as well. Their gestation period is approximately 90 days. There really is no time of year specifically that they are mating. They're born with very poor vision that starts to improve at about 2 weeks of age. Babies will nurse from their mom for about 2 months, and then mom will start to introduce a carnivorous diet to them. At about 3 to 4 years old, 3 to 4 months old, they'll be completely weaned and exclusively be eating a carnivorous diet. Oftentimes, cougars that do cause trouble are cubs that have just left their mothers. Most often, that's young males in search of a territory. However, again, mothers with cubs that are struggling to feed sometimes do get into human-wildlife conflicts as well. Cubs will often stay with their mothers for about 14 to 20 months. This is just a picture of an actual natal den site. They all vary time to time, but natal dens are often filled with bones, spinal columns, ribs, other easily transportable pieces of prey for mom to bring back to their babies. And then a den like this one provides shelter for those kittens when mom's off hunting and trying to provide for them. This is just the difference between a male and a female cougar. Hopefully no one's close enough to be able to actually tell, but on the left there, the male's penis sheath is visible, that black spot there. The female, her genitals are not visible. Cougars are often referred to as the ghost cat because they are masters at blending into their surroundings. In Metchosin here, we have a lot of thick, dense forests that borders onto a lot of farmland, which provides opportunity for them to be undetected. They hardly ever make any noise when they're traveling. They have really thick, dense fur between their paw pads that muffles sound when they walk. So like when we're walking through the forest and we're breaking sticks and twigs, they're not making those same sounds that we are. One thing that I do love to mention about cougars, though, is that they make massive efforts to avoid humans and conflict with humans. There was a biologist in Montana that did a collaring study on cougars to monitor their use of territory and the effects of their presence on a bighorn sheep population. And when the scientist was out collecting scat to determine what those animals were eating, he had a radio or GPS device to see where all those collared animals were. And despite how close they came to him, he never heard one or saw one. They want nothing to do with us. This is just cougar track marks, so 3 lobes at the bottom, 2 at the top is the best way to tell that it's a cougar. I've seen wolf tracks that have no claw print, so that's not always the best way to determine, but they do have retractable claws. Just like this is a cougar cache site, so oftentimes cougars will bury their prey.
Can we go back to the scat?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so
I like to show this because it's almost impossible actually to tell the difference between cougar and wolf scat without DNA analysis. There are atypical and typical types of scat, but all predator scat can contain hair, bone, and fur. So that's not the best way to determine what it is. You actually need to send it off and figure it out, unless you have, of course, trail camera proof of them pooping right in front of the camera, which is how we know what these ones belong to. So this is a cougar cache site. So cougars oftentimes will bury their prey to return to it, not always. Again, animals are individuals. They have typical behaviors and non-typical behaviors. This is quite a graphic video, but I think given everything that's happening in the community now, it is important to show. Again, cougars don't understand the difference between wild and domestic animals. They simply see food. If we're providing opportunities for them to eat by leaving livestock unsecured, that's free game for them. Again, they don't understand. They don't understand town borders or fencing or anything like that. They just see food and they're going to go after it. So this is a mother that was predating on sheep. She had 3 cubs. There was another mother at the same time frame that had 4 cubs. Any more than 2 cubs for a cougar mother is really a struggle for her. Most often, some of those animals will succumb to starvation because that's just too much pressure for that mother to be able to successfully feed her babies. But unfortunately, these guys had a wealth of opportunity to predate on sheep, and so that's what they did. So good practices to avoid attracting cougars. Securing our livestock is number 1. I know that there are a lot of challenges and it's a complex issue, but there are options. One of my options that I suggest to people that are leasing land or have a huge flock is a protected covered carport with electric fencing around it. Again, cougars are very auditorial and visual animals. If they can't see something, it's unlikely that they're going to pursue it. Same thing with like a full fence as opposed to electric fence, like a covered fence. An animal's not going to jump into that if they can't see what's on the other side. They're very visual creatures. Bring free roaming cats indoors, keep your pets on leash, supervise children. Again, animals of opportunity, right? So they truly don't understand. They just see easy, accessible food, and they're going to go after it. And a very wise man once told me that animals have adapted to live among humans, and as humans, it's really our responsibility to ensure that animals can live among us. This is the mother with the 4 babies. Unfortunately, these animals lost their lives due to the fact that they were predating on livestock quite frequently. But again, that unfortunately is not the fault of the animals, right? It's we need to take responsibility for ourselves and how we coexist and how we need to consider how our actions impact wildlife at all times and not exclusively when there's sightings posted. If you do encounter a cougar, we want to make ourselves look large, stick close to our friends and family, back away slowly. Again, those animals are so visual. We want to maintain eye contact with them, make noise. Don't run. Cougar can run 80 kilometers an hour. That's not a fight that us or any of our livestock are going to win. And then, again, keeping our pets on leash and supervised. And then just a couple little quotes here. Carnivores, again, can only exist with human tolerance, and that's a massive responsibility to humans that most of us really don't understand. And humans fear the threat that they can see, and the only population of big cat in the world that's thriving and expanding is the one that we don't see, which is the cougars. And again, it's important to understand that while these animals are opportunistic hunters, they do make great efforts to avoid humans and conflict with humans. I've been studying cougars for a few years now, setting up cameras in areas that have fresh kills and where I know that there's cougar presence. I've never seen one, not in all the time that I've spent trying to understand them. So that again is just a testament to truly how much they don't want anything to do with us. They're simply just trying to survive. If you're lucky enough to see one of these animals, please know that they are often just passing through. Habitat loss is something that affects all animals, and we need to be mindful of that because they were here before us. This is part of the project that I have been working on for the past several years. So I've created a map. It actually spans the island's entirety, but this is just the South Island. So each dot corresponds to a cougar sighting and a date and a location. It has information about that encounter if anyone saw it or got a picture of it. And then X is an animal that has been destroyed either by hunting or from human-wildlife conflicts, and a star is an animal that has gotten into conflict with either a livestock or domestic pet. I like to show this because it just goes to show that truly they're around all the time. And again, we need to be prepared to coexist at all times and not exclusively when there's sightings. And then, yeah. I'm accompanied today by Constable Sergeant Scott Norris from the Conservation Officer Service, so if anyone has any questions for either of us.
Okay, thank you. Council, does anybody have any questions? Councillor Craig.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Little. Thanks for the presentation, Molly. Can you tell me, people have talked about keeping attractants away, wildlife attractants, and I know that's important for bears. Is there anything that can be done about cougars in that way? I'm talking about beyond the livestock question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, making sure that our children are not wandering through the woods unsupervised is kind of the best one. Any attacks that I've ever heard of that happen on children are children that are either far ahead of the group of adults or typically behind. Again, cougar's not going to typically go after something that they know they're going to have to really fight for. There's surgical killers that operate with great efficiency. And again, it's opportunities, right? So if an opportunity doesn't look worthwhile, they're likely not to pursue. Keeping our dogs on leash is, again, a great one. Typically when that happens, dogs ahead of you or behind you. I think I've only ever heard of one case where a cougar has attacked a dog on leash. And usually those animals are sick, dying, and desperate. They just have no other option, and they kind of have to get into those conflict. Bringing domestic pets inside is kind of the number one. Cougars are not scavengers like bears or wolves. They want fresh meat. So not providing opportunities for them to access that fresh meat is kind of the number one way to coexist with them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the presentation. It's very informative.
Thank you.
And express my appreciation for the work that Wildwise has done. It's becoming more clear that our residents are being more aware of the wildlife that actually is passing by either monitoring each other, putting their garbage away for the bears, or letting people know that there's a cougar in the area, and then they go the other way. So a few times I've seen that now. I've heard it either in the neighborhoods or been posted on social media. So I think a lot of that is attributed to the work that yourselves are doing for our community. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sheep and then Councillor.
Thank you very much, Molly. Your views on electric fencing in terms of managing livestock and cougar encounters?
So electric fencing is going to be incredibly effective for bears. It's not going to be as effective for cougars. Cougars can jump quite high distances. Having, again, that kind of full fencing is going to deter cougars from jumping over because they can't see it, right? Electric fence cougar can typically see through. But there are options. There's literally always options. So the best thing to do is to bring animals in at night for livestock. Again, animals of opportunity, we can't guarantee that nothing would ever happen during the day. That's just unreasonable to expect. But with cougars making great efforts to avoid humans and conflict with humans, typically, most often, they are hunting at night when it's quiet and there is not a lot of human activity happening. So bringing animals in at night is kind of the best way to protect them. Or having a covered shelter that has electric fencing around it, just a portable car shelter with like a tarp over it. It's unlikely that they're going to, put a lot of effort into pursuing that. And if it does shock them, they're going to remember that. Animals are smart and they're individuals, and they do remember when things affect them negatively.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Pitt.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on the idea of covered fencing and what people have used to configure large properties. That's
I understand that that's probably not realistic for massive pieces of land. My take on that is that farming has been around for, hundreds of years, and I do understand that, but society evolves and changes every day, and we have to be prepared to adapt with it. When banking first came out, we didn't have to worry about cybersecurity or any of those things, and with the demand for coexistence in our society now, we have to consider adapting to those practices. If you can't afford to have a 6-foot fence all around your property, there are other options, right? And so we have to be able to be open-minded to consider those other options. Guardian dogs, other guardian animals, donkeys. There are a plethora of options.
Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
both for attending. Okay, with that, we have the public participation as a part of our meeting. Members of the community are invited. You've got 4 minutes to a maximum of 45 minutes, should you wish to speak. If you could identify yourself and your road, please.
Thank you. Jim McPherson, Eagle Tree Place. The budget summary with the agenda package contains $514,000 in expenditures that were not included in the budget that was approved April the 4th. The fire department has posted a posting in April for a position for a full-time permanent employee to be paid union rate of $42.92 an hour, or about $89,200 per year. Is this a new position, or is it an upgrade from an existing one? This was posted while the budget was being discussed and prepared, but was not approved in the April budget or April 4th budget. If this is an upgrade to one approved at the budget of $65,000, the $25,000 was not approved. There is also a matter in terms of, it appears that a cost for engineering has been missed altogether. There had been, in previous issues of the budget, $38,400, but in this budget has not been included at all. Since the fire department is acquiring at least one new position, the fire department, I think, should also resume providing a call-out report similar to the RCMP report every month for the Muse. This used to be done, and it was very well received by the public, giving them a fairly good idea in terms of what the fire department was all about. Now that the chief has a new administrative support, this can start up again. It shows basically in terms of how busy the fire department is, and shows for accountability. Based on call-out logs, this reporting should not be a major job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nithya Harris, Coexisting with Carnivores Alliance. My thanks to Molly for her excellent presentation talking about cougars. Also, my thanks to Nicole Shukin for bringing up the important issue of biodiversity in the recent emails. As Nicole mentions, the loss of biodiversity is a key issue of our time. And world over, people are finding ways to prevent this loss in everything we do. To find a solution to the conflicts between large predators and farm animals in Metchosin without considering the impact on biodiversity is thinking from the previous century. And as we all know, cougars and bears are keystone species and play a very important role in preserving biodiversity, not only in Metchosin, but for the whole region. We at the Coexisting with Carnivores Alliance have been speaking and working with Metchosin residents and farmers about this issue now. It looks like almost 10 years. We know that there's no easy fix here. What we do understand is that there has been predation from cougars and bears over all these years, and before that. Some years the biggest concern is predation from bears. Some years it's cougars. Some years, luckily, if we're lucky enough, there's nothing. Last year, 6 cougars were killed in Metchosin, and a year later, the issue has not gone away. The vacuum created is filled by other animals, and we would come to another emergency situation the next year. What does work, and this has been proven over and over again, is a comprehensive plan to manage wildlife attractants. This includes management of garbage, chickens, sheep, pigs, other farm animals, and mainly looks at education towards what human beings can do to change their habits and their practices. To prevent these large carnivores from coming into the community, we don't want to attract the carnivores from coming in and staying there. So we also know that where people have followed best management practices such as electric fencing, dogs, bringing in the flock at night, has resulted in the reduction of not only loss of farm animals, but also less wild animals being killed. Now, such a plan needs to be developed by a variety of people within the community, including farmers, residents, people with expertise in biodiversity protection, people with expertise in resolving these kinds of conflicts with carnivores. A plan co-developed by the community based on facts and what the community wants leads to informed choices. I would like to ask my chosen council to lead this effort to put together a community group with a variety of expertise and interests to come up with a plan for reduction and management of wildlife attractants in Metchosin. As I said, it's cougar today, but it may not be cougar tomorrow. There's a lot of expertise that we have available, including Metchosin's own Peter Powell's, who could be amenable to joining such a group. Many communities across BC have done this work already, and this work can be used, some of this work can be used in Metchosin, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you for considering this idea. It is my hope that we're not dealing with this exact issue a year from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. I think the cougar and the rabbit issue go hand in hand. We have attractant everywhere. By that I mean the rabbits. It's a buffet inviting the cougars in. If we deal with them, then we might not be having them think that this is the place to stick around, and we'll reduce their want to be here, and maybe they'll go after the deer in Langford or something. On the note of getting rid of the rabbits, I think a possible solution might be looking towards the birds. I have been working with one of my neighbors to get rid of their rabbits, and what it has done is attracted lots of large predatory birds. And I think if maybe we look to putting up owl boxes or habitats or off-spray or things that attract the birds, we might be able to get them to do the work for us. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Little and Council. Nicole Shukin, the Vaughan Road resident. Want to thank Molly for her presentation and Nithya Harris for her comments. But I'm going to speak very briefly to a different agenda item, which is Langford's proposed amendment to the stormwater covenant on Metchosin's bufferland. And I just want to say that I don't see any reasons for not agreeing to the proposed amendment, given that Chianu has a vital interest in its part of the Centre Mountain lands. And given that servicing of their portion of the Centre Mountain area needs to come through the residential development coming from Happy Valley Road. So for Chianu to be able to realize the benefit of their land there servicing is obviously critical. I'm sure that Council has looked closely at the wording, however, of the proposed amendment from Langford, who asks that paragraph 6B in the current covenant be deleted and replaced with one that they're proposing. And in their wording, the adjusted amendment will ensure, quote, that stormwater flowing from the dominant lands into Metchosin Creek is maintained at pre-development levels, amongst other things. So that's great. However, I noticed that while there's mention of quality or flow, there isn't any mention of stormwater quality. So the quality of water flowing from the so-called dominant lands into Metchosin Creek is something that Council might want to consider asking to be included in the proposed amendment. So just to close, I hope that Council will scrutinize the wording of the proposed amendment, since maintaining stormwater quantity and quality at pre-development levels is necessary for the health of Metchosin Creek. which is a fish-bearing creek. It's home to coastal cutthroat trout, a salmonid species, which is a close relative of the salmon that are so pivotal, as I understand, to Chianu identity and nationhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Atherton, Levon Road. I last spoke in public participation on January 22nd, where I criticized the district's respectful workplace policy for all its deficiencies as a policy document. Yet this is still official district policy. The policy had previously been presented to members of advisory select committees with the requirement that they sign they had read and understood the policy. I refused to do so, as I would have been making a false declaration. My refusal resulted in my disqualification for reappointment to the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee. I was appalled that I would be compelled to make a false declaration. According to the policy, I determined that I had been bullied and sought redress through the formal complaint process. I highlighted 8 policy deficiencies in my complaint. One of the most significant ones was that the policy didn't apply to members of advisory committees, as they weren't included in either the scope or definition of the policy. In other words, the policy was so sloppily written that it failed to include those target groups in the policy. As my complaint was directed at Mayor and Council and the former interim CAO, the policy stated that it would be referred to an investigator with specific timelines for completion. According to WorkSafe BC, a human resources professional would normally be retained to objectively investigate this type of complaint without bias towards either the complainant or the respondent. Instead, my complaint was referred to the same law firm that wrote the discredited policy. I am in receipt of a registered letter from the managing partner of the law firm, who was instructed by the district to respond to my complaint. Not instructed to investigate, mind you, only to respond to it. Regardless, I feel that his response totally supports my complaint of bullying. A respectful workplace is important. Respectful interactions between members of advisory committees and their interaction with members of staff and council is also important. If a complaint is made, people subject to the policy need to know that they are protected by the policy. This did not occur in the adjudication of my complaint, as the district chose an adversarial approach by referring the complaint to their legal counsel rather than a human resources professional. That's a monumental policy failure and reinforces my complaint of bullying at the highest level. The major deficiency of the current policy is it attempts to include employees, volunteers, contractors, and members of advisory committees in one policy document. That doesn't work. After having done an extensive review of the policy, I make 5 recommendations to address the district's interest for a respectful workplace. 1, repeal the current policy. It conflicts with the CUPE agreement, is so poorly written that it doesn't actually apply to volunteers and members of advisory committees, is bullying in nature, and is administratively burdensome. 2, in consultation with CUPE, adopt the workplace bullying and harassment policy statement developed by WorkSafe BC for employees of less than 20 employees. That is, focus the respectful workplace policy only on employees. 3, in consultation with advisory select committees, consider amending the language in advisory select committee bylaw number 493 to incorporate district expectations for respectful interactions among members and with staff and elected officials. That's yourselves. Deal with contractor requirements with appropriate language in individual contracts. And 5, don't get too concerned about a formal policy with casual volunteers. I appreciate the district responding to my complaint. Should a similar complaint arise in the future, I recommend the investigation referred to a human resources professional as recommended by WorkSafe BC. Finally, the district may wish to review the quality of their legal advice and the cost. The current respectful workplace policy does not meet the drafting standards one expects of the legal profession. Thank you.
Good evening, Bev Bacon, the chosen resident. Just want to say I agree with Mark, and I think I've said this before, that the respectful workplace. I think you should separate out volunteers and staff and not try and make one size fits all. I can't imagine, 14 pages or something that you want a volunteer to sign. Who would want to volunteer? But that's not what I got up to talk about. I want to thank Molly for the information she gave us on cougars. And I got some useful stuff out of there as a farmer, as a sheep farmer. I didn't know that they really don't use the sense of smell to find their prey. That makes a difference to me in what I do. And also that if they can't see it, they're less likely to attack it. Those are two good things. And the idea of having a portable car shelter, one of those tarp shelters, if you're moving sheep from field to field, that might be worth a try. I don't know. But there's a lot. You can't go and tuck my sheep in at night, and I know you really care. But what you can do, and what I've been saying to councils for over 20 years, is you can provide wildlife corridors. We have 3 identifiable wildlife corridors. The wildlife has to get from the ocean to the Souk Hills and beyond. There's one that sort of goes through Boys and Girls Club and over Machosen Mountain. There's one that's Woody's Lagoon up over Helmicon Mountain, and then there's the one over by Mary Hill. There's 3 corridors that you should be protecting. And I use the word forefathers. It sounds like American Constitution or something. But our forefathers, some of them are still alive, who came up with our OCP, I don't think they were thinking about wildlife habitat. When they made all our properties can be subdivided into 5 and 10 acre lots. That's what council can do, is rejig the zoning. Say, okay, this is a wildlife corridor, this is a wildlife corridor, this is a wildlife corridor. We won't cut trees in these areas. They might be privately owned, but maybe there's restrictions on fencing, maybe there's restrictions on you can't cut trees. Maybe there's, maybe we make some of these 30, 40, 50, 100 acre minimum parcels. But if we go at the rate we're going, we're always going to have a property owner come and say they want to subdivide, and it's too late then to say, oh, but there's such nice habitat there that we're going to lose. Think of it now. Look at it with fresh eyes from an environmental point of view, from environmental stewards that I believe you are, and rejig the zoning, and that's the most effective thing you can do, is to keep habitat for our, especially for our large mammals. They're going to have nowhere to go if we chop up Machosen. Thank you.
Tom Henry, 4198 Stillmeadow Road. Regarding Molly's presentation, I really admire the intensity of your research and the passion she brings to it. I think Molly's research is shorter term than mine, more intense than mine. Mine, longer term, maybe a little more obtuse. My thoughts on cougars and some of their behaviors are at variance with hers, and rather go into the minutiae of that at a council meeting when you have lots of things to talk about. I think we need to set up further get-togethers, and I think there might be something in the offing where we can talk about that. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to think of this possibility, that there isn't a crisis right now. There isn't, extremes going on of, too many cougars being killed, or wildly too many sheep being killed, or we have to massively change the way livestock farming is done in Machosen. It may be that things are just slightly out of kilter now. Maybe we've been very successful for years. What's some of the evidence of that? Ongoing livestock farming in Machosen. What's another success of that? The presence of bears and cougars in Machosen. So clearly, there's some sort of coexistence going on already. Now, I'm a farmer, and we piss and moan when too many sheep are killed. And the greener people complain when what they think is too many cougars are killed. And I see it waving to one side of the road and to the other, but I'm not feeling that this is a fantastic emergency, that catastrophically strong things have to be done one way or another. I think, over 30 years of livestock farming in Metchosin, I think we've been very close to something that I see as successful, which is the willingness of the livestock farmers to see some of the livestock go virtually every year as a concession for living in a community that's proximate to the wilderness, but not too much livestock. And on the other hand, a place for wild animals to interact in a community safely with people and more or less safely with the livestock too. So my message is one of middle ground and kind of boring. I don't think this is an extreme kind of a shouty conversation. I think it's a nuanced one, and we're not actually that far off a successful middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Theo Mitchell, 498 Still Meadow Road. I was actually going to talk about the Chosen Community Day, Sunday, September 8th, but I'll come back another time on that one. I'm actually going to pick up a little bit, and usually Tom is the inflammatory one and I'm the calm, resilient one, but it's going to be a little different tonight. But I do want to thank Molly and the work that you do. I think it's really excellent. My family's been farming sheep in Metchosin since the 1950s. And I think there's a few points I'd like to make. One is, it's really only in the last 15 to 20 years that we've seen significant cougar kills. And there's probably a lot of history for that in bears. But I also want to say at the outset, we are really privileged. We value the livestock, but we really value the wildlife. It is fantastic to live in a place where we can honor and see bears and cougars. Very few people ever get that chance, and we do. And we do that by creating wildlife corridors. The farmers of Metchosin have for years created wildlife corridors. You will not see a livestock farm with 8-foot chain link fence. Obviously if you have a vegetable farm, you need to protect your veggies. But what we're seeing in Metchosin now is a trend I think is very worrying, which is people building and erecting very tall fences that are crowding wildlife into narrower and narrower areas. And I find this really troubling. I see this as a little bit of old Metchosin, new Metchosin. Old Metchosin was about keeping farmland open, managing your hedgerows, letting people see the views. When my grandfather established the Sea Bluff Trail, people thought he was crazy. Why? You have private land. But he said, no, I want people to enjoy this view, this world that we live in. And so we have honored that as a family. And as I come back to actually what we do with cougars and bears, I want to make it really clear. It's not every cougar and every bear. I too have wildlife cameras. I know what's going through. We've had resident bears for years. We have cougars that track through every 3 to 4 weeks. Rarely, as Molly said, rarely ever see them. But occasionally we have some that suddenly develop a taste for lamb or deer. I've tried donkeys. I've done the works. Electric fencing donkeys. But when you have a cougar that has basically taken a taste to sheep, unfortunately they keep on going. So on February 17th this year, poor Scott got a call from me because at 7 a.m. after letting out the sheep, which they had been in, we lost 5 on the Sea Bluff Trail. Pretty open, pretty public trail, 5 killed. Clearly a mum teaching her cub to kill. So is that every cougar? No, but it is some. So my request, and here I absolutely agree with Tom, this isn't a question of ban all the cougars or erect the fences. It is a nuance. And I think working here with conservation is really key. I'd say in my years of being in Metchosin and farming, and from my grandfather before that, it's had a really strong relationship with conservation. They push back when they think we're wrong. We sort of push back. It's been a very productive and supportive relation. But what I would ask is also that I think it was H.L. Mencken who said, for every complex problem, there's a simple solution, and it's almost always wrong. And I think this is a classic case of that. I think there is a lot of nuance, and I think there's a lot of understanding of what we need to do. And perhaps we aren't that far off, but I think you have a recommendation later tonight that I think is very sensible, of bringing MIASC and finance and conservation together. But it's not a question of cougars here, farming here. There is actually, I would like to really underscore for you that farmers of Metchosin have been the defenders of wildlife and biodiversity for years and years. And were it not for farmers in Metchosin who don't erect huge big fences and who keep the wildlife corridors open, we would be in a very different situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Bonnie Hoover, Neil Road. I have read, not studied, mind you, the documents in the agenda package regarding the covenant amendment. And once again, I am concerned about the water flow directly related to the residents' property on Neil Road. My neighbor, Odile Apted, has asked me to speak on her behalf as well as myself. It appears there's no mention of stormwater management directly related to the 5 or 6 residences that are on the bottom of one of the steepest slopes, and our homes border the least amount of buffer land noted at the south border. Of course, it is all about the Bilston and Metchosin Creek protection, and I totally understand that, hence the subdivision's water pipe system to protect them. However, does Langford think there will be no changes to the water flow to the south? Further, there is yet to be a decision on the location at the large detention pond, which will be somewhere within the buffer land. Some of you may remember the case of a similar issue on Triangle Mountain, when a water problem saw sinkholes and shifts in houses. I will leave you with that thought, and I hope that the CAO and the Council will address these details before putting the approval stamp on this amendment. Thank you.
Leonor Davison, 900 Speyside Lane. I'm surprised all of you talking about cougars, because the biggest problem is the wolves. The wolves have killed most of the deer off in the last 4 or 5 years. Each wolf pack has 9 puppies, and my neighbors have cameras all over at the back. We have 1,000 acres next door to us. The wolves are in there, the bears, cougars, and the elk. And now when the elk have babies, the cougars come in and the wolves. And now we have very few deer because of the wolves. So maybe that's why the cougars have kind of moved over to the sheep, because we usually have a herd of 6 deer on our front lawn and a cougar around there too. And now we have very few deer. So, you can see them kind of moving, but there's a few less wolves now. So, perhaps that will be a blessing for the farms and etc. It's all a balance act, all the animals. But the wolves are the ones that really cleared things up 5 years ago. So perhaps it'll all balance better, and the farms and the sheep will be good, because why worry about cougars when you've got so many wolves?
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Kim Hill, 1070 Brookview, on the banks of Bilston Creek. I've been involved with management or whatever, overseeing the assets, community assets in the Bilston watershed for over 30 years now. Speak to the item on tonight's agenda that deals with adding allowing an exemption, contemplating a change to the agreement that Metchosin made with Langford to do with the industrial land. I've been on this repeatedly to you guys before about this, and this is just my nightmare coming true. We know that area on the industrial land is never included in the residential land stormwater shed plans. Not that those plans are clear to us. I mean, they're nebulous. We have repeatedly gone through FOIs trying to find out what the heck's going on with those. The pond, it's still up in the air. That was not supposed to happen like that. Both of the industrial lands and the residential lands were clear cut. There are services that are being installed. That was not supposed to happen. We're supposed to have our stormwater management plan all sorted out before that started. We did them a huge favor, Metchosin did. Really unusual that we allow a neighboring district to come onto our land and we service their stormwater. And it's not just the volume. It's just coming off of impervious surfaces, road runoff, pollution. It is dangerous stuff, and we're going to be wearing that. We've received absolutely no guarantee that we're not going to be damaged by that. As said, we've been repeatedly asked for some sort of transparency from both Langford and Metchosin. We've got nothing. We need to have some information coming to the community before this goes any further. That is just not right having extra land, drainage land, put through there where we don't even have the plans for the residential area sorted out. It's not appropriate. You should not be approving that right now. We've been very generous, and it's well. Okay. I'm just going to ask straight out, does this council ever intend to get a grip on the situation? I've been here, it's got to be 6 or 7 times. We're spinning our wheels, and it's distressing, and I think that you guys are way overdue for standing up for us. We've done them a huge favor. We deserve respect in return. And also, what really gets me is skirting around an arrangement, allowing one party to skirt around an arrangement, a fair, generous arrangement, under the guise of reconciliation. I just think that is a travesty. I think it is disrespectful to all parties. As a fair and generous arrangement, we are willing to come to the table, but we don't like to have something sprung on us like this. It's unfair, it's not right, and I'm gassed. So I would suggest back up a bit here. Let the community know what's going on, get their facts in order, and don't do things behind our back. It's not good, and it rocks my confidence. It makes me wonder about if we're in good hands. You guys have got the power. I got a voice tonight. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening? Okay, we're going to move along in the agenda. Thank you for the public participation. We've got the adoption of the minutes on page 13 of your council agenda.
Mayor Little?
Yeah.
Move adoption of the special council meeting of April 4th, 2024.
This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then we've got adoption from the council meeting of April 8th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we've got receipt of the minutes. Number 1, Councillor Donaldson. This is the Special Finance Committee budget meeting of April 4th.
Move to receive the Special Finance Committee meeting budget of April 4th, 2024.
Move received by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then Councillor Donaldson, continue.
Before I do have a slight request
Sure.
for the recorder. On page 24, reports 5A, where it says tennis courts resurfacing, can we just acknowledge that that is the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society's tennis courts, not the children's,
Okay.
please?
Okay.
A citizen has asked me about that, and
Okay.
just for clarity.
For clarity. Great.
Yeah, thank you. And so, move to receive the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting of April 8th, 2024.
Okay, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're going to move along to the business arising. Councillor Donaldson again. This is a business arising from the council meeting of April 22nd, the Finance Committee recommendation.
Yes, so the Finance Committee recommends that Council direct staff to expeditiously schedule a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee, and that staff invite conservation officers from the BC Conservation Officer Service and retired conservation officer Peter Powell to the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Agricultural Accessibility, or the Agricultural Select Committee.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Donaldson. Looking for a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Schuken. Discussion. Councillor, do you want to motivate first, Councillor Donaldson? You want to speak about it first of all?
So I just wanted to just bring it forward. We had talked about this at the last meeting, the April 8th meeting. It was a conversation we had at the Agriculture Advisory Committee based on reports we've gotten from farmers of concerns with loss of livestock due to wildlife kills. And at that point in time, we were well over 30 kills for this season, and just turning livestock out onto pastures as we do every spring. To date, it's not even been a year, and we're past the 19 mark. The idea of having these different people coming together for this meeting is to explore some options, education, understand the regulations and management of what conservation officers do, which is conserve. There's a lot to learn and a lot of exchange of information, including what we hear from the public and myself as a farmer and the fellow farmers. The Agriculture Committee consists of farmers from all different facets of this community. So their wish was if we could get together with council and have a larger conversation with the importance of having conservation there as well, that this would be a useful session to be able to explore whatever the options are.
Mm-hmm. And this will be an open meeting to the public. It's not a closed meeting. Anybody will be welcome to attend.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Councillor Schuken, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I just wanted to reflect on some of the comments that we heard earlier tonight in relation to this committee, the meeting that's being planned. And again, thanks to Ms. Cameron for a very enlightening presentation. But it was also interesting to hear from Mr. Henry and Ms. Mitchell about their experience and the fact that they've been doing in this business for so long. And again, the question, the word nuanced was used, and again, it's maybe complicated. There's not just one solution. Clearly, electric fencing is going to be really challenging, and again, the realities of the big fence around is going to be challenging to the large producers. But I also want to touch on something that Ms. Harris mentioned earlier as well, as the potential of a working group. That might be something that comes out of the idea of the committee discussion to tackle some of the deeper issues underlying this as well. So I fully support the next steps here, but we maybe have to think again about a functional group that takes on some of these issues. So I'm supportive of this, and just thinking about the next step based on, I think, some of the really interesting, important comments that were heard tonight.
So that might be a recommendation to council from this joint meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'll be voting against the motion. My biggest concern is with council's process. I want to recognize and thank Molly Cameron for speaking tonight, Tom Henry, Vio Mitchell, Nitya Harris, who else spoke on the issue, Leonore Davidson and Eric White, all very helpful to hear from them. I guess I'm wearing my chairing the Environment Committee and liaison to MEASC, and I just want to recap that at March 4th council meeting, we recommended to the Environment, the council responded to a recommendation from the Environment Committee. The recommendation was generated by MEASC, the Environment Advisory Select Committee, and it charged the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee and MEASC to work together to advise council on cougar predation issue. I thought council had supported MEASC's idea because it supported a balanced discussion involving both agricultural viewpoint and those most familiar with strategies to protect biodiversity. I posit that we don't know the role for the district, but it might be that we can learn more. The MEASC proposal was intended to lead to a briefing package. In other words, a look at sort of an in-depth look at this with some research into the legal framework, the experience as elsewhere, what other local governments done, provincial guidelines, recommendations on farming practices, and talking with some experts. Well, I respect what Nitya Harris said this evening about setting up a working group. That's actually quite complicated to do, as we all know on council, to involve people who are not already established on advisory committees. But our notion at MEASC was that we would be talking to experts and bringing people together with whoever met with us from the Agriculture Committee. So nothing slapdash at all. I very much appreciate hearing from Tom Henry tonight that we're not facing an emergency situation. And the notion that the MEASC and Ag Committee would get together was first talked about in the notion of this will take some time. And it was only recently with a letter from the Ag Committee that suddenly it took on its urgency. It really had to be done very quickly. So at the April 8th meeting, we changed course. And then we got the recommendation that we're talking about tonight. And that's to have a meeting to determine action. And I guess what my concern is determining action before having gone through some look at the details by the two advisory committees who we respect and work for us and get that work done. And allow us to have an informed discussion when we're focusing on actions. We've got pinks here from Shannon Hamilton and Nicole Shukin. They're asking council to be certain to include consideration of biodiversity and the role of cougars in our ecosystem as council deliberates. That was a setup we had going. Nicole Shukin especially points out that council will not have done our due diligence prior to making decisions without the voice of biodiversity well represented. And she's got the idea in her note about us, maybe bring MEASC together. I don't think that works well because I think we need to get the basic background work done. Wouldn't be a quick report, of course. It may take us a month or two. People are away and the issue is complex. Most of the advisory committee members are volunteers, but I think it's worth the time and effort. We may not come up with much, frankly, but I would like to bring it together, deal with the question, and bring something to council as we had previously agreed.
Thank you, Mayor Little. My sense of things is the motion that we passed to ask MEASC and the Ag Committee for a report on this matter still stands. And I don't see any reason why it should be shelved or ignored. So that's my sense. What I think would be really interesting is to make sure that the MEASC members are invited to the meeting that's held when it is scheduled, and that they maybe use that to inform the forthcoming report that we've asked them to do. And I throw out the idea of a working group, but it may take another form. I recognize that there's some administrative burden with that, with staff, but there may be another form that might take place to minimize that. So just, sorry, in summary, I think the motion that we passed for input from the Ag Committee and MEASC is still in flux, still in play, and it would be great to have, make sure that the MEASC members attend the forum with the Ag Committee.
Okay, would you like to make an amendment to the motion to specifically invite the MEASC members?
Well, I wonder if that might come after we pass this one.
Sure. Okay. Councillor F.
Yeah, I'd like to make that amendment that MEASC be included in this meeting that we're voting on right now.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor F.
I second for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Schuken. Go ahead, Councillor F.
I just think that it could be, a roundtable discussion with everyone coming with their ideas and their information. Just, it's kind of like the more input rather than having a whole series of meetings. If we could just have at least start this one meeting with everyone together, and then that may lead to some other discussions.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Schuken, then Councillor
I
Donaldson.
defer to Councillor Donaldson because I'm betting she would actually be the host of this meeting because she put this forward first. If it can be managed that everyone's at the same table, that'd be great. But even if the MEASC members are there, I think it would be helpful for them to hear the proceedings. So
okay.
I'm open to Councillor Donaldson.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you're correct. This will be an open meeting. I also want to bring to light that in the minutes that I had read from MEASC, there was one person from MEASC that was willing to speak on behalf of MEASC, not a group of them. Not to say that that's not off the table, it certainly is. So I'm not sure if there was that much interest from them or not. I haven't read the most recent minutes, as they're not available at this time. The Ag Committee had specifically asked to have a meeting with council, not to be excluding anybody else, similarly like what we've done with PTAS. All voices will be heard, certainly, as we do with all of our meetings. So open and transparent conversation. Had we wanted to have MEASC and PTAS, I suspect we should have had that motion at that meeting, but that wasn't the case.
Okay. Councillor Gall.
Yeah, thanks for the effort. I still see it that we have a process problem here with asking a group on March 4th if they would engage in some research on the idea and bring it to us, and then saying, actually, hang tight, we'll meet with some people, make some decisions, and then you can bring forward a report on actions. It just doesn't sit well with me to ask a group of volunteers to do something and then turn and say, we're going to do something else, and you can come along and play if you like, but we're not sure of your role anymore. With regards to the interest of the committee, I think people are terribly interested. We first engaged with the Agriculture Committee last June, so a year ago almost, to say, could we pick up this topic? We heard it would be on their agenda. It never turned up on their agenda, so we picked it up at MEASC ourselves and brought it forward and brought it all the way through MEASC, the Environment Committee, to Council. So our intention was to help out with it. I still want to be clear, though, it's not clear what the district's role would be in the end anyway. So not to put up too much fight here, but I think we've got a little problem in terms of how we treat advisory committees and our commitments to them when we ask them to do things.
Okay. Well, I think I think it's a good amendment to the motion. The more people, the merrier. The more we can educate and try to find solutions. I think it's the best. This is a complex problem, and it will require out-of-the-box thinking. And I don't think one meeting is going to do it. I think this is going to be several meetings and maybe a working group. to come up with some solutions. Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, sorry, when you say setting up a group to look at solutions, you mean the group we've already set up, or you mean you want to put them aside and set up a new group? Or what's the, like, I'm not clear on what the meeting's about, whether or not MEASC participation makes sense. It seems to me it's a lot of people to hold a meeting to get everybody to have a point of view, as compared to having preparation done, people preparing a report. Kind of like when we look at something ourselves, we're a smaller group, but boy, does it ever help to have a staff report that tells us a little bit about what's going on. Look at the number of pages that are here about this amendment in the buffer land. That's a lot of work has gone in to prepare us to make a decision about that. And we've heard from the public tonight. It seems to me that we should stick with it, get some decent report. We've heard from farmers here who were the ones instigating it. The letter, it wasn't the farmers actually, it's the advisory committee on agriculture. We've heard some farmers saying, hey, it's not so urgent. It seems to me it's reasonable to take a look at it and come forward with something useful to you. Said enough about that, except I want to just remember, Molly was here earlier, I forgot to say it's Earth Day. So thanks, Molly, for making a presentation on Earth Day.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Shukin.
I have to go back and ask Councillor Donaldson her views, because having everybody at the table strikes me as logistically pretty tough to manage a meeting. So, Councillor Donaldson, do you think it can be done? And again, I turn to you because I think you're going to be coordinating the meeting essentially.
Thank you for that. I'm not excluding anybody from the process. I do believe that everybody has a valuable part in it. I do want to honor what the Ag Committee, who we have selected as a citizens group, the opportunity to voice what they have to say. We could have MEASC there as well. I'm not sure, I don't know how it's going to be at the table. The logistics of that aren't really, where people sit isn't as important as what the actual topic is. And the topic is for the farmers to have a conversation as they requested with council. Then whatever the next steps of that maybe Ag and MEASC get together, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, it could be that the council is the wrong people to be at this preliminary table. It could be a joint meeting of MEASC and the Ag Committee bringing forth recommendations. I don't know. So what you're recommending is not to amend the motion.
I'm not disagreeing with amending the motion. I'm just saying what my counterpart here is saying, Councillor Gray, is, we should have a report, but we should have the two groups get together. It may be that we come away from this with Ag meeting with the council, that's what they decide, is to have the two groups get together. We could do with all one group. I'm not opposed to it. That's what I'm saying. The motion is about getting the conservation officers in the room who have the knowledge of conserving and helping us working with our livestock and our wildlife. Having had the same experience myself, although I don't have a large farm, some things work and some things don't. I know it works for us. But being a voice for the farmers, listening to what they have to say, I think is key. But the conservation officers will bring another element of knowledge and expertise to that for all of us, including biodiversity, including coexisting. So, sure, let's all get together in one room. It will be an interesting evening to facilitate, but we need to be heard.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
And just to be clear again on process, the letter we received did not ask for a meeting with council. It asked us to take some action. It asked us to get in touch with the conservation office. It asked us to write a few letters. I tried that on, that we might respond, doing what they asked us to do, and we decided instead to have this meeting that I'm describing is a bit out of place. Perhaps there are other discussions about them asking to meet with us, but I hadn't seen that correspondence or wasn't aware of it.
Well, I will just take it as that the council liaison from the Agricultural Committee brought forth a recommendation that the Agricultural Committee wanted to have a meeting with council. And so I'll take that at face value, that that's what had happened, and she's brought that forward, which is commendable. Okay, anybody else wish to speak? If not, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. So the amendment is to invite the MEAS members as well. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. And on the main motion, as on page 31, that council directs staff to arrange the joint meeting with the Finance Committee and the Agricultural Advisory Committee meetings, and that staff invite the conservation officers. Okay, on that motion, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. Okay, thank you very much. Moving along to page 33, we have the Centre Mountain Residential Development Construction Phasing and Covenant Amendment Proposal. Okay, Mr. Payette, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and through the chair. The purpose of this report is to bring forward a proposed covenant amendment that supports the collective obligations under the 2017 reconciliation agreement between District of Metchosin, Beecher Bay and the City of Langford regarding advancing of infrastructure work for the Centre Mountain Business Park. I believe that council's had a chance to read the details of the report. It's not an easy report to write, but for the record, the background of the report talks about the covenant and the purpose of the covenant for the buffer lands put in place to ensure the preservation of the existing flows and the quality of the water, as mentioned by one of the residents earlier, to not just the creeks, but to the woodlands, to the soil, and to our environment. But most importantly, to the creeks, as far as stormwater management is concerned. In the discussion, 3 more salient points are that the City of Langford has proposed the amendment to section 219 of the covenant, 219 covenant, and the attached letter from the City of Langford describes the proposed phasing of the works. And I just want to mention at this point that we have representatives here from the engineer consultants for the City of Langford. Clap your hands. And we have a representative from the City of Langford, corporate director, I believe. And it's nice to have members, representatives from Beecher Bay. Welcome. And we have our esteemed engineer for the District of Metchosin, Al Hurley. So I am recommending this amendment. On the next page, I'll just summarize a little bit of the letter from Langford, and we included the letter. We included all of the information I had for everybody to review. The letter, in the middle of the first page, it talks about 3 items that they would like to do. If you agree with the amendment, would be to construct the civil works and sale of 34 lots in phase 1, the interim civil works in phase 2, and that would get potable water power and an emergency road connection to the Centre Mountain Business Park. And there's an element of time to that item as well for December 2025. And to get to that date, we're proposing the amendment be approved tonight. and the installation of a reservoir and a pump station. So all of those items would be triggered by this amendment. And then just following the letter, for everybody's understanding, is the map. We put the full wording of the amendment obviously in the report. And the wording of the amendment's been reviewed by the legal representative for Langford, as well as our own legal review. And the reconciliation agreement is available for everybody's consumption. And it does talk specifically about our partnership, our tripartite partnership with Beecher Bay in terms of their economic opportunities in reconciliation. So that is for council. Recommendation is to approve the amendment, and we are collectively available for questions.
Okay. So I'll open this up to council for questions. So we have representatives from Metchosin, our engineers here, our CAO, as well as the corporate officer from Langford, and engineering staff from Langford, as well as the developer too, I think. So who wants to ask questions? Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I'd like to have a better understanding of what the placement, the actual location of the installation of the reservoir and pump station and what it actually does. And my second question would be in the first phase about the stormwater, where that stormwater is going and by what means is the stormwater leaving that property and where does it end up?
Okay, so your first question's not involving stormwater, it's water with the pump station and the reservoir. So perhaps we could have Langford engineer, or who would like to answer that question? Come to the microphone, introduce yourself, that'd be really great. Thank you.
My name is Peter Ferguson, and I'm here representing the city of Langford. Really anxious to answer your questions. We know you've had a lot of them, and we would like to address them the best we can. The first question I heard was the location of the pump station and the reservoir. So this infrastructure is bringing water to both the Center Mountain residential development and also to the Center Mountain Business Park. In order to get the water to the business park, it has to come through Center Mountain Residential. It originates from Happy Valley Road, and then it travels westerly to a pump station, which is located on Center Mountain Residential lands. The pump station is required to pump the water up to a reservoir, again, on Center Mountain Residential lands. By pumping the water up to the reservoir, it provides the hydraulic flows that we need to supply the water out to the business park. So that's kind of a thumbnail of what this whole water system is all about. And then, I'm sorry, you had a second question?
The other one was in the first phase, the blue section here with the stormwater, how it leaves the property and where does it end up?
Okay. I want to make sure I really understand you're looking at the first phase.
Right.
So that's the phase immediately adjacent to Happy Valley Road? Is that what you're looking at?
That would be the 34 lots?
Oh, it was 34 lots,
Yes.
okay. Because, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to create confusion, but there's a work package 1, which is right at Happy Valley Road. And then what you're talking about is phase 1 of work package 2.
Okay.
And I'm not playing semantics, but we had to break it up into mini projects so that we could deliver the entire project. So your question was about where does the stormwater flow go from phase 1?
Yes.
Okay, so part of that stormwater, just because of the topography, goes out to Happy Valley Road. The other part that does not go out to Happy Valley Road will be contained on the property itself, within those 34 lots. So the way the design has been done for the stormwater is that there will be no flows going to any stormwater detention pond. All of the detention and all of the water quality treatments will be done on Phase 1 property proper. So what that means is that there is a stream that discharges out of that area. It will see no increase in water quantity coming to it because we're retaining everything on the properties, and water quality will be addressed by the use of oil grit separators and by infiltrating the water in the property itself.
Okay, so when it goes out to Happy Valley Road, is it going out to pipes into the creek, into a ditch, into a field? Like,
It
where
is.
does it end up?
Exactly, because one of the things we can't do is we can't take water from one catchment zone and put it into another catchment zone. Ministry of Environment will not allow us to do that. This water that I'm talking about right now currently goes there. But again, we must have it so that the post-development flows that go there equal the pre-development flows that are going there currently. Have I confused you? I'm sorry.
Well, I understand the flow part of it, but you say go there, I'm not sure where it ends up.
It goes out to Happy Valley Road to Bilston Creek.
So it will go to a ditch on Happy Valley Road and then flow through a culvert into Bilston Creek.
That's correct. First, it'll be in a tight pipe system, which will go to the route you just described.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. You can ask more questions after if you want.
I'll ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Through you to Mr. Ferguson, is there a referral process in terms of stormwater management planning for Phase 1? So would we, if you're going to be doing these according to the bylaws of Langford, but within that process, is there some sort of referral that comes back to Metchosin to allow us to see what the plan is? Or maybe, yeah. You want me to answer that?
Yeah,
Okay.
If I disagree, I'll let you
Oh,
know.
thank you. Yeah, you're quick, I know that. Certainly. We have to design these systems to be in compliance with the stormwater management bylaw for both Langford and because Metchosin is downstream, we have to design it to be in compliance with the stormwater management bylaw for District of Metchosin. So that is respect of the water quantity and the water quality. So yes, it is designed to accomplish and be in compliance with those, and your engineer and the city engineer for the city of Langford both do their review and their approval before we're allowed to proceed any further with it.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, just one. Mr. Ferguson, you mentioned oil and grit separators, and it'd be great to see them. As I understand, it could be part of a thorough process. Opportunities for infiltration as well. And just having read a number of the stormwater plans for the larger residential area, I did notice a definite increase as the plans progressed in terms of quality measures. So it'd be great to have the plan for this reflect some of that, the advanced thinking as well. So I just think that.
Absolutely. I think one of the questions that we answered was to provide even specifications for what the oil grit separators would be. So we provided the technical requirements of what would be accepted, which again would go for approval through your engineer and through the city of Langford.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hurley, did you want to add anything to that right now?
No, I don't really have anything to add. I agree 100%. I guess the short answer is yes, we do have an opportunity to review all of the stormwater management plans from all areas of the residential site.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions? Councillor Gray, and then we'll move to Councillor Eck. Or sorry, Councillor Shukin, and then
Sorry, I'll
we'll go
defer
to
to Councillor Eck.
Councillor Eck.
Yeah, I know you mentioned this, but I just want to double check that you said that the amount of water that would be flowing into Bilston Creek the first phase there, that still would be at the same levels that it is currently.
Correct. Your bylaws require us to achieve post-development runoff equal to pre-development runoff. So this is a mandate that we must achieve and one that we must prove to your engineer that we have achieved.
Thank you.
Councillor Schicken?
I have another level of question.
Sure.
And this is really awkward, but it's probably to the corporate services person from Langford, whose name I don't know if we know.
Marie will introduce herself when she comes to the mic.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council. My name is Marie Watmo, and I'm the Corporate Officer for the City of Langford.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Schicken.
Thank you very much, Ms. Watmo. So could you take us through some of the financial matters around this? So not only the loan, which will enable the water line to go through, but also where the developer's interests are and why this is connected to the 34 lots that we're considering here in larger scale, because I know you can't talk for the financial side of the developers, which is unfortunate they're not here tonight. And Mayor Little, if I could just mention one thing, it's really great that we're here today talking about this, and the request has been made a number of times to have the developers and the Chiano Nation come out to talk about the Centre Mountain development. And it'd be great if this was the start of a broader discussion about that development, but Ms. Watmo's here, and so my question is, could you take us through some of that, the financial realities of all this?
I'll do my best.
Sure, yeah.
Errors and omissions accepted. So this is a local service area that has been set up, and so the borrowing that was done by Langford for the LSA. So it's the developers who will pay the costs, but Langford has taken out set up the LSA.
Okay.
And it's all interconnected. So there's two LSAs. There's a roads LSA and the water LSA. And I'm sorry, I'm not the finance person, but
yeah,
the water is needed for the residential, and then it will flow through to the business park. So it's all interconnected, and that's why the residential needs to be able to go ahead so that the water infrastructure can get put in place, so that then the Centre Mountain Business Park can also have their emergency access as well as water.
Okay, great.
Okay. I think what you were getting at, Councillor Schicken, was that it's clear that the developers need more money, more capital to continue on with the project, because they want approval for the 34 lots to be approved and sold, which would generate money for continuation of the phase projects. Would that be a fair statement?
That would be a very fair statement. So the owner of what is going to be the Centre Mountain Residential, in order to continue the development, needs to be able to sell lots, because it's tying up a tremendous amount of capital, and so in order to be able to sell those lots, this has to proceed.
Okay. Any other questions, Marie? Councillor Schicken? No? Okay, anybody else have any specific questions?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is thank you, but maybe a question for Mr. Hurley.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's great. So I just, as I interpret the amendment, how the covenant is going to work, and I'll just test this with Mr. Hurley, what we see is a reference to Schedule A, and within Schedule A, you'll see a dotted line called the catchment area. That includes a large portion of the buffer land. But it covers a big, of note, a big portion of the residential area called the catchment area, I think.
Yes.
And so what's essentially being asked is that we amend the covenant to reflect on the covenant, or sorry, the catchment area. But what's left out of this amendment are the 34 lots, so they can proceed without the stormwater detention pond provisions in what was 6C.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, but essentially the amendment leaves all of the other things that in the original covenant in place regarding the larger subdivision. Is that correct, or?
Except for the utilities out to the business park, the water line, and on the understanding that the parts that are going to trigger the need for the stormwater pond are the hard surface things, the roads, the sidewalks, the houses, the lawns even. So all of that is still prohibited until the stormwater management pond is designed and constructed.
Right.
But putting a water line underground doesn't affect the runoff, so that would be permitted under the amendment.
Okay.
Whereas it was not permitted under the old covenant, because the old covenant speaks to infrastructure, and the water line underground certainly is infrastructure.
Great.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
Through the chair, Mr. Hurley, I'm taking it from all the work that's been done here that you're satisfied that the environmental stewardship as regards the water flows will be okay with this amendment?
There's still work that needs to be done, but it keeps us in the loop, and it decouples this infrastructure to the business park from the important business of managing the runoff from the residential area into the stormwater pond. So that's still a very important process to go through that we aren't done yet, but
we're not hampering ourselves.
We're not hampering ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Donaldson, did you have any additional questions that weren't answered?
No, they were answered
Okay.
in due course. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to ask any questions? So is everybody clear about what the ask is in terms of the covenant and the amendment to the covenant? Okay then. So I don't want to rush this, but I want to give lots of time for questions. We've got people here that can answer the questions. No? Okay. So with that, we've got options on page 34. The options for council to consider, 1, 2, and 3. Does anybody want to propose a motion?
Mayor Little, I would move that council approve the proposed modification of covenant CA 5867520, and that a copy of the registered modification of the covenant be provided to the district of Metchosin once registration is received from the Victoria Land Title Office. So moved. And
Okay.
a comment or two.
This is moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you very much. I've been reflecting on this issue since I got my agenda package on Friday, and the big thing, the two questions were answered to me, is the onus that the developers are on to do stormwater properly with the 34 lots that will be developed, the fact that we get a chance to have a look at their plans, and also that essentially the core issues in the original covenant in terms of how it relates to the stormwater detention pond, those are maintained. But the other thing that I'm compelled by is the importance of supporting the reconciliation agreement, and particularly, specifically, the Chino community as well. And I thought your comments at the opening of the meeting were very, very apt and very powerful in terms of Machosen's commitment to the reconciliation agreement. So with those 2 points, but also this third one as well, my sense of Langford's involvement in this is that they have taken the covenant seriously. And they, the one thing I will notice is, again, it's too bad the developers aren't here, because the covenant is actually between ourselves, as the owners of the buffer land, and Lot D, which is the residential area. So it's between ourselves especially. But again, I think with Langford's leadership and guidance here, I get the sense that they are taking the covenant very seriously. So on that point, I'm willing to support this.
Okay. Councilor Donaldson?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Councilor Shukin's comments there as well. I appreciate that we have an end date too. It's another 1.5 years, so that appears to be a sufficient amount of time, according to what the developers are asking, that they can actually work within that time frame, and that we know then we can move on to the next set of expectations that all of us had with that, both Langford and Machosen. Yeah, so I do appreciate the work that's been done thus far.
Okay. And to echo Councillor Shukin's sentiments, that hopefully this is the start of many conversations. Hopefully we can have a conversation with Langford and with our council, with Seattle First Nation, to talk about things going forward, and the developers as well. That would be really great to have those open and frank discussions. Anybody else wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I think that it's important to respect the reconciliation agreement, the objectives and goals, which are very important to Shannon Nation. I don't recall asking them the nation to come before to talk about these issues, but the idea of future conversations does make sense to me. I've read the letter from Langford. I don't see much in the way of options except, and it seems all makes sense. It's a complex predicament that the developer is facing indeed, and we do want to get to water to the industrial park. I remember it wasn't that long ago that in these chambers we were hearing from residents that a concern that the commitments made about pipe water to industrial area might not be fulfilled. And so tonight I just want to remark that, in fact, the commitments made by Shannon Nation and the others in the tripartite agreement are being met. It seems to me again and again. So I'm thankful for that. I'm going to vote with Councillor Shukin and Councillor Johnson, who've been leading the effort on this file. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of option number 1? That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're going to move along to my mayor's update, which is on page 27 of your council agenda. We have an announcement for Rise and Report. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a Rise and Report from one of our closed meetings. Kathleen Sutherland has been appointed to the Healthy Community Advisory Committee, effective immediately. And congratulations to Kathleen Sutherland. So regarding my mayor's report, it's heavily concentrated on the CRD. My last report about the CRD was on February 5th, last written report. This is a continuation of that. The budget has been accepted. The CRD's consolidated budget totals $777 million, including $431 million operating budget, and the $345 million capital budget. So these are enormous budgets, as you can imagine, compared to what we deal with in Metchosin. In terms of the impact per participant municipalities for 2024, the average cost per household to Metchosin represents a 5.95% increase on an average cost of $486.59. The drivers for this increase was the Regional Park Service and the fire dispatch. Other business regarding the CRD. The CRD board has adopted the board code of conduct at its March evening. This was a very long process, but in the end, the board accepted this comprehensive and well-written code with the foundational principles of integrity, accountability, respect, transparency, and collaboration. The CRD has been responsible for the beneficial reuse of Class A biosolids produced at the residual treatment facility since 2020. This remains a contentious issue. The short-term biosolids management plan includes the primary beneficial option being incineration at the alternative fuel at the cement manufacturing plant in Richmond, BC, industrial land reclamation at a quarry in Cassidy, BC, and integration of the landfill cover. Due to operational and logistical issues, the only option currently available is landfilling, and this has capacity issues. Staff are currently searching for other short-term solutions while developing a long-term plan. As the CRD liaison to the newly formed Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee, I attended the meeting in March. This is an absolute dynamic group of people. Many of the people from IACTI were appointed to this committee. They'll have some important recommendations to the CRD regarding suggestions for accessibility from people with lived experience. Teresa Hutchinson, who's the General Manager of Parks and Environmental Services, has announced her retirement after 33 years in the District of Metchosin. Want to extend our congratulations and thanks for all her work. As the CRD Vice Chair, I was part of the committee that was tasked with interviewing potential candidates to fill the position of General Manager, Parks and Recreation Environmental Services. Ms. Louisa Jones has been chosen to begin work at the CRD, and she will do so at the end of this month. She comes with an incredible and varied resume and with experience creating a biosolid management plan from Chilliwack, BC. CRD staff also gave an update on the Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Act, a 2023 overview. They've seen 284 FOI requests in 2023, with the majority of the requests being individuals and realtors regarding information about planning and protective services. And there's a link to the tables there for you. Staff at the CRD also gave an update on the Regional Parks and Trails planning process and the Regional Parks and Trails Stewardship Plan. The CRD board established a management planning process in 2006 titled the Pathway for Regional Parks and Trails Management. The Regional Parks and Trails Strategic Plan 2022-2030 to 2030 provides direction and the update for the existing process to improve the development and delivery of the plan. The proposed process will guide the development of the park and the trail management plan, as well as other high-level regional parks plan. And there's a link there if you'd like further information. Interestingly, the Extreme Heat and Vulnerability Mapping and Information Portal Project, as well as climate projections for the capital region, has been completed. This work is designed to support emergency planning and local climate adaptation. Working collaboratively with and on behalf of local governments, the CRD secured a $150,000 grant from UBCM to initiate the Extreme Heat Vulnerability Mapping and Informational Portal System. This provides information on the data analyzed. The work will help guide planning and decision-making to improve community resilience, emergency planning, and public health strategies across the capital region. And there's another link for you for more information. It's really very cool stuff, so I really encourage you to seek out those maps. We may be able to use some of that information in our own climate action plan. The Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities held their annual conference April 12th to 14th. We all attended. A very successful farm-to-table tour was held in Metchosin, and congratulations to Councillor Donaldson for coordinating this event, and many thanks to the farmers at Sea Bluff and Still Meadow Farms for their participation.
Through your question to Councillor Donaldson, how many attended the tour?
There were about 39.
Nice.
That's good. It was well received and well attended.
On site, they arrived half an hour late. They had a good time, although it was hard to tell until I got to the convention and talked to them throughout the convention. Yeah, it was a tough crowd to kind of figure out, but it was interesting. Behind the scenes, I see a lot more than probably what they saw, but it was a very good experience. I think for people, the furthest person away would be Chris Rupert that joined us. Some come from similar areas where there's farms, others come from urban landscapes. So it was good for them to actually see our pig farm. You know, there's 400 pigs there that day, so teeny tiny ones, big ones, and everything in between. And then to be able to go next door to Sea Bluff Farm for a tour of the hedgerows and things that are up and coming, both inside and outside, because they have greenhouses and stuff. And then a meal that encompassed food from both farms. So it's all local. So yeah, it was a proud moment for us.
That's good. They might have been confused when they arrived after a 30-minute delay. They might have thought they were on the Magical Mystery Tour, so maybe that's why they were a hard crowd at first. Okay. Regarding the ABICC, CAO Bob Pyatt and I attended a meeting with Leah Hollins, the board chair, as well as Kathy McNeil, president and CEO of Island Health. The following items were discussed, some of which that I had talked to the Seniors Resource Center about. Seniors, transportation, at-home care, aging in home, the availability and costs of hearing aids, lack of health care providers in our area, fire chief and the role of the fire department as first responders to the medical calls, youth matters, desire to keep the youth within our community and activities that we would like to see here, drug overdoses, young men in the trades, specifically using recreational drugs at home alone, and concerns that we have regarding that. Finally, I attended a welcome home reception for the ship Max Bernays at CFB Esquimalt. This was last week. So the new ship will make its home in Esquimalt. The Max Bernays is a third Harry DeWolf class offshore patrol vessel for the Royal Canadian Navy. The class was derived from the Arctic Offshore Patrol Ship Project as part of the National Shipbuilding Procurement Strategy, and it's primarily designed for the patrol and support of Canada's Arctic regions. This is a fairly new ship. It was delivered to the Royal Canadian Navy in September of 2022 for post-acceptance trials, and it was indicated that she would be the first vessel of her class to be based in the Pacific region. On March 11th, Max Bernays left Halifax for its new home port in Esquimalt. It was an honor to be invited to attend and welcome the ship home. Congratulations to Base Commander Kevin Whiteside, as well as the commanding officer of the ship, Commander Colin Forsberg, and all the crew aboard the magnificent Max Bernays. There was 13 family members there. The ship was named to honor a Royal Canadian Naval Serve Acting Chief Petty Officer from the Second World War, Max Bernays, who performed heroic heroic measures during the Second World War. And with that, that concludes my mayor's update. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mary Little. I just wanted to ask a question about the biosolids. Obviously, it is a complicated, difficult issue to sort out. What does the meaning of integration of landfill cover? Is that land application of
No.
biosolids?
Well, it is land application, but it's land application at the landfill. The problem with this is that there's limited space, but also when it is applied, it needs to be applied, I think it's at a 2-to-1 ratio with other soils. And so it's not very cost effective to dump it in the own landfill because you've only got a certain capacity there. The option that we had was that to send it to Richmond for burning in the cement factory has been a continual problem. They've had operational issues, so they had to come up with these other short-term solutions, such as land reclamation at the Cassidy site for remediation of industrial sites. So it's a quandary. It's a real conundrum. And the real conundrum is that the province has mandated that we must consider land application for silviculture, for instance. But that has not been a policy of this board. It is the policy of Metro Vancouver. Throughout BC, many people apply it to both agriculture and silviculture lands. But the past boards were of the opinion that this was not safe. So that's what we're going with, and that's what we're trying to balance here, because soon we'll be not in compliance with the province, meaning the province could fine the CRD.
Thanks for the explanation. I recall that in 2021, Metchosin took a position opposing land application of biosolids. And MEAS looked at it the other day, and we're going to be bringing forward a recommendation on Environment Committee that biosolids not be applied to land within Metchosin. And it's about protecting our land, protecting our aquifers, protecting our water courses. So we'll bring that forward at a later date.
Okay. Okay. So with that, we will go back to the agenda to, where are we now? We're at number 10 on page 85. Are we not? Yes. We need a recess. Okay, we're going to recess for 90 seconds and we'll be back in about 90 seconds. Thank you.
Is Mr. Herbert, so he's not available for questions at the end of
Gary, Gary, ask the question and we'll get the answers. Ask the questions though, and we'll get the answers.
Well, I think, anyways, this is our first and more base one. Okay, it's a 5-year.
does feel nice to have air coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if you turn to page 85 of your agenda package, we have the municipal consent for bylaw 4588, Regional Parks Loan Authorization Number 1, 2024 from the CRD. The Capital Regional District is seeking municipal consent for this bylaw to authorize the borrowing of up to $50 million for the purpose of financing the regional trestles renewal, trails widening, and the lighting project. The plan anticipates borrowing approximately $10 million annually in years 2 to 6 of the project. The annual debt servicing based on the current municipal finance authority indicates a rate of 4.65 and is anticipated to be $5 million when the $50 million is fully borrowed. In order to adopt this bylaw, municipal consent from 2/3 of the participants, which include all 13 members of the municipalities and the 3 electoral areas by way of electoral area director consent on behalf of the electors. So you have the information before you. You have a copy of the bylaw as well as this staff report here. Councillor Gray.
I'll make a motion that council consent to the CRD adopting bylaw number 4588, Regional Parks Loan Authorization bylaw number 1, 2024.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor App. Discussion. Councillor Gray, did you want to motivate?
Yeah, I think this looks like a substantial and necessary project for the CRD. I appreciate that this is not involving trails within our jurisdiction, but at the same time we contribute to those trails and they contribute to trails and parks within Metchosin. So I feel that it's worthy of support.
Councillor App?
No, it just seems like something that needs to be done, so I'm happy to support it.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment on this? Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'll support it as well. It is heavily trafficked with lots of pedestrians, cyclists, all sorts of different people. There's an accessibility element there as well. The trestles do cost a lot of money, so I can understand the upgrades that are needed there, and lighting for safety as well, because people are doing, they're traversing through here for longer periods of the day as well. So it's a great corridor for people to move through.
Okay. It is in line with the strategic priorities of the CRD, and it also is in line with our increased desire to move towards active transportation as well. Okay, see no one else wants to comment on this. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we have next correspondence for information on page 115 of your council agenda. This is a report for your information. This is the CRD Regional Growth Strategy Indicators Report. This will be an important document for our planner, our new planner, regarding the regional growth strategy, the implications, as well as the values that you can see at a glance, the different indicators: managing and balancing growth, environment, housing, transportation, modeling. Councillor Bird.
I want to just thank you for sharing the report with us. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. And I think it does a little bit of backing us up in terms of the role of the District of Metchosin within the CRD to preserve wild spaces, forests and farmland outside the urban containment boundary. I'm looking right away at the managing and balancing growth part of the dashboard. And I do believe we need to do our part in the face of long-standing pressures to increase density and face those pressures head on by continuing to follow our OCP and limiting increased density in Metchosin.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Okay, I'll receive a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then moving along to page 151, this is a letter from, have I got that right? Yep, this is a letter from Honorable Ravi Kahlon from the province of British Columbia. This is regarding the newly introduced Bill 16. If passed, the Bill 16 will establish an inclusionary zone tool that will allow local governments to require affordable housing in new developments without relying on rezoning process, and to accept cash in lieu of affordable housing and affordable units on a different style by the agreement. As well, density bonuses, as well as tenant protection bylaws. And there's some other things in this email. I'm not sure how much of it is going to be directly applicable to Metchosin, but I thank the Honourable Minister Kahlon for his correspondence.
I'll move receipt.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Councillor Shukin, did you wish to say anything about this bill?
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just to the question about how much might apply to Metchosin, I just had a really quick opportunity to look at the legislation, and it doesn't seem to me it is going to have a lot of applicability here. It's really designed to enable greater density, and especially in areas where there are better services for transit. So again, the transit-oriented areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not seeing it as a something really that's going to concern us.
Although we do have tenants already in Metchosin, so that may be applicable.
And what I saw with that is there are protections for tenants in the event that somebody wants to develop a small-scale multi-unit home. So yeah, for evictions and the opportunity to come back to a place where they had been and has since been redeveloped into a smooth view. So yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion to receive on the table. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a letter on page 157 from Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change from the Government of Canada. And this is regarding our correspondence of February 15th concerning funding to address invasive mussels in BC. He notes that he's glad that we sent this to his counterpart at the Ministry of Fisheries, Oceans and Canadian Coast Guard. He notes that the minister of that ministry has recently announced new funding under the Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Fund to support the ongoing work of British Columbia's Invasive Mussel Defense Program. And there's a link there that does work. Additionally, he wanted us to know that the federal government is investing $650 million over 10 years in the Freshwater Action Plan, although I don't know what that action plan is, being delivered to the Canada Water Agency to protect and restore water quality and aquatic ecosystems health via 8 freshwater ecosystem initiatives across Canada, including the Fraser Basin.
I'll move receipt.
Yep. Okay, so with that, I've got a motion to receive, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any other discussion? Councillor Shukin?
Oh, no, sorry.
No? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mayor Little.
Yes.
Sorry, there's one other letter from Minister Kahlon. I think we jumped over it.
Did I jump over it? Okay.
Yeah. It's the legislation to support small-scale multi-unit housing. I'll just make a motion to receive.
That's on page 155?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that is also from, as you noted, Minister Kahlon. They do include information on Bill 44, 46, and 47. This is all for our information. So it's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, just to say, Metchosin is excluded from the requirements for small-scale multi-unit housing.
Okay. Councillor Shukin?
Sorry, one other thing. I believe that we're going to get guidance in the coming months. I thought it was over summer about the housing needs assessment and what specifically needs to be included in that. I think it's coming, so that's will be important to us. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. So this was moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor for receipt? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay. We've got a bylaw here. This is our financial plan 2024-2028 bylaw for consideration. So how would you like to do this? Would you like to have Mr. Pyatt speak to it? Or would you like to have questions first? Let's have Mr. Pyatt speak to this. Just a reminder that we have had 9 meetings. We've discussed the finance, the budget 2024-2028. Go ahead, Mr. Pyatt.
Okay, thanks through the chair. So as discussed, this is the culmination of a lot of effort over the past few months or longer. And so the financial plan bylaw number 700 and the tax rate bylaw 701. So the backgrounder talks about the requirement for the 5-year financial plan by the province and the deliberations. I believe that we have mentioned quite a bit with the public. And then the final tally of the proposed general municipal tax increase of 7.1%. And then so for bylaw 700, the financial plan, which is more detailed in Schedule A, is a summary of all of the work we have done on the operating, and that will be inclusive of 2024-2028. And then finally, based on the calculations of the operating budget, we have bylaw 701, which is the rates, and the rates are established in the summary table, and then the paragraphs correspond to the summary table. I think that's fairly straightforward and summarized for everybody to understand in Schedule A. So that is presented for first, second, and third reading tonight.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
I just want to offer a couple of clarifications I asked staff about today. And it's just a little bit tricky for public, well, and myself, maybe all of us, reading the budget in the summary format. So there's a one-line protective services of 2.2 million, and that includes fire, building, bylaw, emergency services, and police. So the reason why that number doesn't sort of match up, it's a conglomeration, and it's in that format because of the nature of the summary and the categories that are required by the province. The other thing is that there was an extra $14,000 for the library requisition we'll see there, but there's a corresponding increase in library taxes as well that takes care of that for those that spotted that. And then there were some questions from Mr. McPherson at the front, and I wonder if we could answer them. I don't know the answer to the first question. He asked, there's $514,000 missing, or that you can spot, but perhaps there could be some conversation separate from the table to identify that for him.
Is he okay?
Yeah, I don't exactly know where we're looking at, but
I'm not sure.
I'm suggesting that the surplus is the factor, which is such a big number, and the surplus is carried over from, in our case, this budget from 2023 and 2024, because there were some items in 2023 carried over as well. So they culminate into a revenue line item in the operating budget, and then they're expensed out in the expense items in more detail depending on the project. So that would account for a large part of the operating budget that you see.
Did you have further questions for CAO Payette? Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I'll just stay
I think, well, I could explain perhaps that Mr. Pyatt and I were in correspondence today about the cost of engineering, and while I haven't located the money for engineering, I'm assured there's sufficient funding in the budget to carry the engineering cost for the district.
Yeah, and through the chair, the recall that we will embark on an asset management planning regime this year, which I'm really looking forward to, actually, to get a better understanding of all the good work that was done in the past, and then bring forward a new review of all our roads and culverts and ditches. And so the cost of that is borne by the grant that we received, 50/50 grant. And so that amount of funding would offset some of the engineering costs that we had determined, I believe, in the very, very, very beginning of the budget process before I was here. And then the engineering consulting costs are actually under the transportation coordinator line item. I don't understand why that is, but that's the case. And perhaps with our new software that we can look forward to this year or early next year, we can have, a better understanding of some of these expense line items and where they're accounted for in a newer version of the software program. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sure. The other question was in relation to the advertised firefighter FTE, and April 4th I took the number apart for the public to see that the cost there were for current employee, the current chief, and the $65,000 for the new employee. And I think we only have 3 employees there when we're done with this budget, and if we hire the third person.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a question there, but that all sounds about correct. And then we'll review the position as it's been graded on the scale, and so I can review that. And obviously, hitting a line item perfectly in the budget is not necessarily, I don't know how to say this. Every budget line item is our best guess. The only ones that are exact are requisition line items. Everything else is our best guess based on historical data. And so we're going to hit and miss many of the line items. That's why we bring it forward to council on a regular basis for reporting surpluses and deficits. In this case, the grading process with the union I'm going to review, and we'll try and get a better indication of what the salary will be for the position, and hopefully hit that mark a little closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you for that. Don't go away.
Don't go away.
So we have approved the budget. We're just doing the readings tonight for that particular position that Ms. McPherson has brought forward and queried the posting, which is significantly different. So when we have a budget put before us, which was November 23rd, it is my understanding that all the research is done before these things come to us. So so we have deliberated for actually 8 meetings, not 9. There was a 10 total and 2 were canceled. So for those 8 meetings, we deliberated considerably amount of time, and this topic actually came up quite a bit, with more information changing as we kind of went along. So here we are with $65K that we approved a couple weeks ago. So that is in the 5-year plan. So I'm not sure how this is going to be affected with another $24,000 plus benefits goes with that. But I would caution that we actually stay within our budget. And if we have to look at other ways of doing that, maybe we do something with, like we're doing the model that was suggested February 8th, and that is to have the paid on call by some offset of that daytime, because this started out as an admin support worker for doing all these extra documents for the changing regulations or the updating of the regulations in BC, as well as the having a component of entry-level firefighter. The posting actually is not entry-level. That is significant. It's fire prevention officer and firefighter. And in looking at Civic Info's history of postings, the requirements in that were significantly different than what we were told through the budget process starting in November. So I'm understanding what Mr. McPherson, and I've had several phone calls from and emails from residents on this as to what's going on with this, where are we with this, how's this changing things. And the only thing I can say is that we approved the budget on April 4th at $65K for the next 5 years. So I'm curious how we're going to manage that if now, the 11th hour, it's changed.
So I don't know if there's a lot there. So my comment is that, that we can't expect to hit line items perfectly, but in this case, as I said, I'll review the process with QP, and they've agreed to do that, and we'll try and hit the budget mark as closely as I can.
So the job description seems to have changed. And so I understand the 89K probably is a match for that job description. Councillor Shukin asked at the very first meeting for job description and level of qualifications, what they were. Councillor Gray had asked for it at a recent meeting, and we've got 2 different positions, it looks like here. So we've agreed on the first position, and I think we need to be obliging to that for transparency, integrity, and accountability. And staff has presented that to us, we go on what staff has given us. We need to, that was the vote. We need to stay within that budget.
I think the vote was, so what our jobs is to look at the budget. So we've allotted 65,000 to that. It was a best guess, and we allow staff to do the rest. So we're not really, I think we're getting into the weeds defining the job description of one or the other. What our job is to do is to accept or not accept the budget as presented.
I agree that we're accepting the budget as presented at 65K. We all agree with that. I believe also that when you put a budget together, I understand you might be off the mark, $100 here, maybe $1,000, but this is significant. It's not just the $25,000 in wages, it's more than that when you add on your benefits and your pension. It's probably another 20 to 24%. It didn't take me long to figure this out when I looked at the Civic Info postings that I've been following for a number of months, because nobody's teaching me how to do my job. And I went out there and I looked, and so it helped with having access to that. Anybody can, you don't have to subscribe to it, to know and then to be told what this job was in the beginning, and now 4 months later, if in fact it's something else, it's completely changed. So I have to go with what I was led to believe by staff who I have confidence in would have done their homework to come to the table and present this. It's like having a dump truck. It's estimated it's going to be $275,000. We found out it's an extra $35,000. We can live with that, but this is significant.
Councillor Epp.
Yeah, I believe that, I agree with Mayor Little on this one. I think it is the job of the CAO to hire and deal with the staff. I think, obviously this could have been done a little bit better as far as the numbers, but the budget is still have the same, still at 7.1%. And I think we should just let the CA do his job and hire the staff as he feels is necessary. And with that, I would move that council give first reading to Financial Plan 2024-2028, bylaw number 700.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Epp. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any comments on first reading? Go ahead.
Sorry, Dave, but we sat here for hours going through this.
Yeah.
Information is given to us of areas maybe we don't have the expertise in. And then we have many people that came to these meetings and expressed, record numbers of people came out to budget meetings expressing their concern about high rates. We've talked about integrity, we've talked about accountability and transparency. This whole council even campaigned on those elements. I just want to say that yes, as of February is too far away, April 4th, when we passed it, we need to stay within that. To go from an administrative firefighter who's required to do various upgrades as they train, this position actually is higher than the firefighter day person that's working there. That's a little tender when you're talking about union, when you hire somebody higher than the person you have. And that wasn't the bill of goods we were sold. So we need to stay with the 65K. And maybe in the future, if we hire another person, there'll be a better research done on that.
And I don't disagree with Councillor Donaldson. I think there has been a change to our general understanding of what this position is. I do have to put my faith in the person who runs our shop, and I believe that I cannot see that there being a conflict between the chief and the incumbent or the person who's there and this new role, unless there's a good reason for it. That said, again, I feel that there has been a change, and it might be good to have some more information about that. But at the end of the day, I want to get this passed, and I think that at the end of the day, sorry, I keep saying that, the budget that we've allotted is actually going to cover this position, because by the time that person is hired, that 65 is going to cover this year. So continue to support Councillor Donaldson's or Councillor Epp's motion here.
Councillor Gregg.
Thanks. I think the concern here is not so much the budget, which I'm speaking in favor of, passing first and second and eventually third reading. But I appreciate what we've heard from Mr. Payette, which is that he's going to return to CUPE and take a look at the job description here. And certainly my experience in HR issues is that a meeting like that, it's just a question of pulling out some of the parts of the job description, and the value and the annual income will fall as a result. You can change the hours, is the other thing that could be done. So there are ways of bringing it down into within the budget. It's not so much whether or not we covered this year, but if there's going to be impact on next year's budget. Not sure the figures here, but if we're kicking around 20 grand or something, that needs to be in our 5-year plan. We're approving it today if we know that. It's not there. So I say just leave it with our CAO, who will work through the process. You may need to pull the ad and cancel the competition so that the new thing that comes out is more within the right frame. But I see no harm in doing that, and go for the best candidate possible for the job there. So I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this motion? Okay, I'll call the question on first reading. All in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Thank you. For second and third reading, Councillor Epp, do you want to continue?
Sure, I'll move that council gives second reading to Financial Plan 2024-2028, bylaw number 700.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And move council give third reading to financial plan 2024-2028, bylaw number 700.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Go ahead.
And perhaps now I just make a comment, which is in relation to the budget process, and I do appreciate people's patience with me, certainly going through all of the details as I did do to the best of my ability. I think that I'm voting in favor of the motion, but I just want to point out that this is going to be a tight budget this year, and I think we've heard from a number of people, observers, residents. We may not find ourselves with so much one-time money next year. We may be some scraping around here. What the CO is able to do once we approve the budget is to move money around within the different areas, but this year does not have the ability to find money elsewhere in the budget. So when you talk about making it through the fire department budget, we cut about $30,000 from the budget there already. We moved it into wages, essentially honorarium and other things. So that's going to be a real tight budget to be managed this year. I have all faith that will be done, but it's not as easy as drawing it from anywhere else in the budget because that's not permitted without council's approval. So all that said, we got through here. We have got I think a reasonable tax increase with the 7.1 for residential, the 2.7 for fire department, meaning a 9.8% increase for our residents. And let's do it.
Yeah, so absolutely we will not have the surpluses that we've seen in the past. One of our residents, Mr. Smurford, has always mentioned that we tax high, and then at the end of the year we have these surpluses, and then we have opportunity for one time. So next year we probably will not have any room for one-time items because we won't have that surplus. This is indeed a very tight schedule. One of the things that will happen and has come about because of these finance meetings is the fire chief will be provided with quarterly, I think, reports on where she sat in the budget. She has asked before but was never given those opportunities, so she was sort of guessing all year round. And so she will be afforded those, which will help her keep to the budget, which will be tight. Okay, so with that, that's on the third reading. I'm going to call the question. I'll call the question on third reading. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I'm just looking to our deputy corporate officer if there's anything else required on that point, on the bylaw. No? And then we're going on to the tax rate bylaw, which is
701 page. Mayor Little, I would move that council give first reading to tax rate 2024 bylaw 701. So moved.
okay. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mayor Little, I would move that council give second reading to tax rate 2024 bylaw number 701.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Carry on.
And finally, Mayor Little, I would move that council give third reading to tax rate 2024 bylaw number 701. I just make a quick comment after.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Go ahead.
So, Mayor Little, one of the hobbies I have is to wander through the residential mill rate for all of the municipalities in the CRD. Did it for 2021, 22, and 23. Ours was dead last in terms of rates, lowest that is. Now, that's really hard to do an apples-to-apples comparison because we're not Victoria with our own police force or Saanich, but we were the lowest, and I'm betting that we remain the lowest after this year's quite modest, when you reflect relative to the others, a modest increase. So I want to, again, thank Mr. Payette for his very focused work, and especially for Councillor Donaldson as well. So thank you.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that's first, second reading of the tax rate 701. Okay, so with that, what we got next? Just an announcement on other business. We have a well water and alternatives community meeting, community engagement, Saturday, April 27th, 2 to 4 here in the Metchosin Municipal Chambers. Please bring your experience and your questions. Your input is vital. Contact Councillor Johnson if you have any questions regarding that meeting on April 27th.
At what time?
2. That's this weekend, right? This coming weekend at 2 p.m. Okay, so we're going to be talking about water and lack thereof. Yeah, wells and alternatives. Okay, somebody, a representative from the CRD will be there. I encourage everybody to attend. And then we have the 2 correspondence that I think we've dealt with regarding cougar predation. So with that, we have a question period. Actually, it's after 9:30, but I know there was one question in particular. Let's take 2 questions. Is anybody like to ask any questions?
I'm ready, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Froyo, Comoon Fall Road. It sounds like we've got the fire department all settled out, and I'm presuming we've got a full coverage for 365 days. Everybody's looked after. What about deployment?
Yeah, with deployment, we have 30 to 35 officers here with the fire department. At any given time, only 4 officers or 4 firefighters are deployed, leaving adequate coverage for chosen during deployment.
And what would their so-called rank, or is this any firefighter, or would it be full-time firefighters or volunteers?
Both. They could be full-time and also volunteers.
And that would, 4 of them?
At any given time, up to 4.
And vehicles?
Not sure. I think it would be the same as last year, which would be the large engine and the pumper. I'm not sure.
So I really question the wisdom of sending I'm just wondering how it's done if we've got firefighters right now for the entire year, and at the worst time of a possible wildfire, you're allowing some to leave with a major vehicle.
And don't forget, we have mutual aid with our corresponding.
What if they're deploying too?
I'm told by the fire chief that we have adequate coverage here.
Can that be verified by mutual aid? Can you check with mutual aid what the deal is for deployment for them as well?
I'll bring that up when I meet with the fire chief this next week.
Is this something she requests permission, or she can make the decision on her own?
She requests permission from the CAO, who's her boss.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
One more question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I had 5 questions that I hope to address to the engineer and the engineer from Langford regarding stormwater management. But it's pointless in me asking them at this point in time. Just that I'm very disappointed. As you know, I've been involved in it. I have a master's degree in that area. I've been accepted of the courts as an expert witness in stormwater management. And what I heard tonight, and from reviewing the past work, I don't see how you're going to have an infiltration system in Shot Rock up on the hillside that's going to deal with the 2-year, 5-year, 25-year, 50-year, and 100-year return periods. none of those questions are answered. And they wouldn't be answered even in the stormwater management plan that they're being prepared. They simply said they're going to have on-site stormwater infiltration and retention, which, you know, just leave it there. You'll see what the people downstream feel when they get water on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd still be interested in seeing those questions.
It's not worth my time to be honest anymore.
Okay. Okay, so with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Beck. All in favor? Opposed, carried.